Just a reminder that we are also live streaming this on YouTube, just so we're all aware of that. And I'll make sure that we all get the link to that as well at the end of the presentation. So I'd be happy to begin with a land acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge that I am joining from Amiskwaciwa-Skyhican, which is colonially known as Edmonton, Alberta, on Treaty 6 territory. This is the traditional lands of many diverse groups, including the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and the Nakota Sioux. And since we're joining on a virtual platform, I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional lands that we're each joining from across Turtle Island and the diverse people who have served as protectors of those lands for time immemorial. Now, just a quick look at our agenda so we're all aware of the timeline. Kind of depending on how long our messaging is, I can give you a little bit more or a little bit less time for your panelists' reactions. And if we do have a little bit of time at the end, you're welcome to ask our three presenters some questions kind of about their climate journeys or the paper or their work in Decarbonize as well. And just a reminder too, we will do a group photo at the end. So I'll give you guys a little warning so nobody's like sneezing or coughing during it or anything like that. Okay, so up next, I'm going to let our panelists go ahead and introduce themselves. So first, I would like to call on Senator Rosa Galvez, who is the chair of the Standing Committee for Energy and Environment and Natural Resources. So Senator, I will pass it over to you. Make sure you unmute. You can go ahead and give us a little welcome.
Yes. Hello, Rebecca. Thank you so much for the invitation. So happy to be with you, speaking from the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. I'm an environmental engineering, but presently I also, one of my functions is to be a senator in the Canadian Parliament, and I'm an independent senator. So thank you so much, and looking forward to our discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for being with us. It's such an honor to have you here, and our students are very, very excited to have you on the panel, so we look forward to your feedback. Up next, I would like to welcome Mercedes Bosch-Toka, who is the Mobile Programs Manager at OceanWise.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. I'm joining today from Vancouver, from the territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish people. And I would like to introduce myself, talk a little bit about my work at OceanWise. I'm currently the manager of mobile programs. I'm part of the education department, where we also have online programs and partnerships and education resources. Our programs are all focused on bringing climate change education to youth, empower teachers and youth to take action in protecting our oceans, and also providing them with the tools to accomplish this. And that's it. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. For those that don't know, we did have to do a switch around with our OceanWise people. It's a very busy day over there. So a special big thank you for hopping in with only a couple days notice. So thank you for joining us. Up next, I would like to call on Kathy Warbeck, who is the Executive Director at Green Learning.
Great. Thanks for that, Rebecca. And yes, very glad to be here. And I am joining from Amiskwaciwa-Skyhican, also known as Edmonton, so very similar to Rebecca, which is on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. And I know that at Green Learning, we also have staff across the country, so we do recognize all of the important work that is being done to work together as we all move forward with truth and reconciliation across these great lands in Turtle Island. And Green Learning, we are all about empowering youth and really around the energy transition, climate change, and a green economy. And we do that with by supporting educators and engaging youth in being part of the solution.
Wonderful. Yes, you guys do such wonderful work over at Green Learning. We're so happy to always partner with you. So looking forward to what words of inspiration you have for our youth today. Thank you very much. And finally, I would like to call on Lanielle Bateman, who will be representing Environment and Climate Change Canada. She's the Director for Climate Change Adaptation and Resilience Policy.
Hi, everybody. Thanks very much for having me here. I got a chance to participate in a session like this last year, and it was one of the best meetings that I did last year. And so I was really pleased to be invited to come back. It's really nice to hear from youth directly. And so I work at Environment and Climate Change Canada, and I work in the climate change space, but I work on the climate change adaptation side of things. So responding to the impacts of climate change. It used to be that we were trying not to admit that climate change was happening, or if we were adapting, that it was admitting defeat. But I think all of us are witnessing the impacts on us now. And so my work involves taking the strong approach to tackle that head on. So sometimes it's not popular work, but knowing that the changes are on us, it's important work and meaningful work. And I'm really happy to be here today and join you. I'm joining from Ottawa, so the territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. And I grew up near Bancroft, Ontario, which is the same traditional territory, but that's where I gained my appreciation for the environment and why I became an environmentalist. So the land acknowledgement is the starting point for me for my career, as well as my work. So thank you.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And the ECCC document that they release every year on their department plans is what our youth use kind of as their starting point for what they would like to see done more or done faster or done better. So it's wonderful to have you here to kind of hear full circle what the children across Canada are thinking about those plans. So thank you very much for joining us. I'd also like to take a moment to give a special welcome to Dale Marshall, who is the Senior Director of Climate Programs with the Trottier Foundation, who's one of the people who make this possible through funding. So I just want to give you a welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And if at any point you have any questions or comments you'd like to share, Dale, just let me know, and we would love to hear some feedback from you as well. So just keeping that in mind, and we will go ahead and get to our presentation. So those of you that don't know me, my name is Rebecca Moon. I'm with the Center for Global Education. I want to extend, first of all, an enormous thank you and congratulations to the hundreds of hours of work that have been put in by the students across the country that have led to the conversation today. This manifesto and presentation is made possible through the Waves of Change National Dialogue, which is a school-based program led by the Center for Global Education. CGE is very proud to run our Decarbonize program as a subsection of this project, and we look forward to continuing to help engage youth in their climate journeys as they share their climate stories across Canada and around the world. So thank you very much for joining us to participate in this presentation. Our youth are very excited to have the opportunity to share with all of you, and we look very forward to your feedback. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Sarah to go ahead and begin their presentation.
Hello, I'm Sarah Thornhill, a grade 10 student from Lacombe-Compsett High School. I am a very new member of Decarbonize, having heard about it through my school's eco group called EcoVision. Here we have our farmers markets that we participate in every Thursday. We grow tons of fruit and vegetables from our greenhouse and aquaponic systems, which we then sell at the market. I have some pictures of our goat program and our urban cultivator. We also do many different workshops at our school, from gardening to beekeeping and even pruning. Our club has been to many different summits and conferences over the year, including Cultivate, CRYN, which stands for Canadian Rockies Youth Network, and Everactive. This is where we get the opportunity to meet with people all over Alberta, get ideas, tips for projects, and even make like-minded friends. Decarbonize Global Child Climate Program is a school-based program that connects children in over 70 countries to collaboratively learn, share, and act on climate issues. It is the world's largest synthesis of child learning, research, and action on climate change. Through this program, we were able to engage with Canadian students and with global schools to share and learn virtually through meetings, arts, blog posts, and videos. This year, our school was paired with Kenya for a bilateral meeting, and we were able to share our similarities and differences in our climate struggles in each of our countries. There are currently 12 Canadian schools participating in the Decarbonize program as part of the Waves for Change project, with the final goal being the presentation of our climate manifesto. A lot of work went into creating our manifesto, beginning with the Canadian Youth Climate Survey that was sent out in January to all Canadian students under the age of 18. The main goal of the survey was to gain knowledge on how Canadian youth felt about government policies currently in place regarding climate. They helped give us ideas on what they wanted to see done next. The next step was to send out asynchronous brainstorm documents to all Canadian decarbonized schools. These documents helped us identify the areas that we felt needed to be addressed. The final step was the Canadian Writers' Retreat that was hosted at my school on April 15th. This gave us the opportunity to talk about my school's eco-projects and allowed us to synthesize all of our information into the Canadian Youth Climate Manifesto. And we will now share the key ideas from this document.
Hello, my name is Anne-Claire Shiel, and I am in grade 12 and a part of Decarbonize at Alston O'Brien High School, as well as I have been a part of Decarbonize for the past 3 years. I joined Decarbonize as a fresh start to something new where I get to learn new things and meet new people, and in exchange, it has brought me new experiences. Today, I am briefly going to explain the 4 demands from this year's paper.
Sorry, 1 second here.
Less than half of the students polled selected that they do not believe that they receive adequate education in schools, so we Canadian youth demand that schools across Canada implement standardized and robust education on environmental issues. The picture to the left is our Decarbonize group with some guest visitors who came in and taught us about composting, and the picture to the right is also our group, but we went to another school to share the knowledge from our visitors. A great example of how we as youth learned, educated, and then later took action to nurture our planet. By removing our major addiction to fossil fuels, it will help us to solve the issues that youth have discussed in our poll, like extreme cold, civilian emissions, pollution, extreme heat, and industry emissions as some examples. We Canadian youth demand that the government research and implement sustainable energy solutions that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. As a member in the Decarbonize program, we're always pushing to make our school more environmental friendly, hopefully getting solar panels in the future. Nearly 3/4 of youth imply that there should be action done towards different priorities identified by the Canadian government. For example, the net zero policy, where the government is lacking on imposing strict actions to reach their goals by 2023. We as Canadian youth demand that the government take immediate action on all current climate policies that have been delivered upon. About 50% of youth feel that they experience climate anxiety. So we Canadian youth demand that children and young people be involved in environmental and climate-related decisions. I personally understand this because I worry about my future and the environment I will be living in. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Iftikhar and I'm in grade 11. I'm a part of EnviroRoyals Club at Cold Lake High School in Alberta, and as a group, this is our first year of being members of the Decarbonize program. I'm a part of Decarbonize because I want to help contribute to a greater future for generations to come. Now that we've presented our demands, let's take a look at what you can do to help make them a reality. You can spread awareness, be accountable, and take action. Spreading awareness. Many Canadians know climate change is bad, but do they know how it affects them? High temperatures, shifting rainfall patterns, extreme weather events, and rising sea levels are just some of the changes already affecting many aspects of our lives. An example of this right now is that there are a record number of wildfires burning across the western provinces, and approximately 25,000 Canadians have had to evacuate their homes. People should be aware of how climate change is affecting our province, country, and world. The best way to create awareness is to share our Youth Climate Manifesto with other Canadians to spread knowledge about the impacts of climate change and ways for citizens to combat it. Be accountable. Just because we are young doesn't mean we don't have responsibilities. Take our demands into account. Let's not brush away this presentation, but instead act upon it. Create opportunities for everyone's voices to be heard about climate change and use it to help implement new ideas and goals. We want transparency for our Canadians regarding the impact of climate change and actionable steps and initiatives that are achievable to combat it. Take action. Taking action can be as simple as recycling, using a bike instead of driving, or even turning off the lights that are not in use. Most recently, my group, the Enviroyals, took on a unique project of constructing birdhouses made from recycled containers and wood scraps. These were designed for wrens and will be hung throughout our local community. Something we are looking forward to is our spring highway cleanup, when we bring our families and friends to all work together to clean up our community. Taking action can also be a larger scale project, such as this presentation. We are bringing awareness to the demands of youth across Canada. We are beginning to see our actions are having long-lasting effects. So let's make a difference. In our survey conducted, we found that 80% of youth across Canada believe they can make a difference in the climate fight. If voices are meant to be heard, why are we left out the conversation? 80% is the vast majority of Canadian youth, and it can be known from our manifesto that we are full of demands and ideas to fight climate change. The Canadian Youth Manifesto brings light to our commands, and we hope this will encourage others to take action that will affect their global and local communities. Thank you.
I would also like to take a moment to thank all of the partners who helped contribute to this program and made it possible for these youth to be inspired in such an amazing way. I would like to now hand it over first to Senator Galvez to go ahead and provide her response.
Yes, thank you. Well, first, let's recognize that right now, as it was mentioned, Western Canada is currently under fire, and tens of thousands of Canadians have been displaced in Alberta and British Columbia. But at the same time, in my own province of Quebec, we are having historical floods in the Charlevoix region. So you are right there on the subject and the action that needs to be done with respect to climate change. This is a pressing issue. It's a global issue. It's not just in Canada here. It's everywhere in the world. And we have to help more vulnerable people, the indigenous people or racialized people that suffer of environmental racism, but also on the small nations that hadn't contributed to the greenhouse gas emissions. So I want you to congratulate you for your work, for sure. I am so proud and I am in awe to see you putting yourself together and writing this spectacular report that it's well-researched, well-documented, and visionary. But also, you are loud and ambitious in what you are asking from your government. So please continue to promote the contents of your manifesto through your social media and to any other platform in order to reach as much as possible audience. I will really encourage you to contact to keep your advocacy on climate change, but also to engage with policymakers because, I'm sorry to say this, but we are all people, especially in the Senate. We are all, more than 60 years old, and you are young, and you are inheriting the world that we are leaving to you, and we don't hear you enough. And there is a bill that wants to reduce the voting age to 16. I encourage you to look into that and to support this initiative because that's a way of bringing your voice. I am an environmentalist myself, and some people will say, "Oh, she's an activist." I would say it depends. Actually, a politician is somebody that didn't like the status quo and went to politics to change the status quo. So, an activist is almost the same thing. It's somebody that is not happy with the status quo and wants to change it for a better solution. So climate change is a result of a pollution. And even though we have in our bills enshrined the polluter pay principle, it is very difficult to implement or the government sometimes, because of the pressures of the job, of the economy, then we go into control and manage. But we can see it, that the greenhouse gases, once they are in the atmosphere, how can you control and manage that? So the key is prevention. Please ask for transparency and accountability from parliamentarians. They should behave under the highest moral and ethics standards, and they should lead by example. So you will find that a lot of the situations in which we are happened because there were not enough morals and ethics to protect the vulnerable people, to protect the young generations, to protect the environment and the biodiversity. So please go ahead with that. Again, I repeat, so proud of you, so proud of you. My office has opened doors for you, and we can discuss on individual initiatives. It will be too short the space here to talk about so many initiatives that we can have. Thank you so much, and congratulations again.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And yeah, I would just like to second that the whole idea of the Vote 16 and giving a voice to the younger generation. I know a lot of our decarbonized youth have said this to me of, we're the ones who are having to live in the world that these people are making decisions for. So should we not be given a voice in those decisions? And I think it's pretty obvious by looking at their paper presentation that young people are capable of educating themselves on topics and having a perspective on important policies and sharing those ideas with the world. So for sure, to the students watching and to our other decarbonized students who are joining us on YouTube, support that as much as you can. I have to agree. Awesome. Okay, so up next, I would like to pass the microphone over to Mercedes from OceanWise to share her reflection.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm seconding both your opinions. I am so inspired and so proud of the work that you have done. To be honest, this is why we work. That's what moves me. We work for youth. We work for empowering youth and to create like this, to empower you to take action. So seeing that and seeing how you're pushing to get the world that you deserve, that's everything to me. So first of all, I want to say that it's really inspiring to see you taking action. I think this is the first generation that I see getting so involved and making yourselves be heard like so strongly. I've never, like historically, I don't think that there is any generation that it's so clear in what they want. And I think it's working. This year I was fortunate enough to be at Impact 5, which is the International Congress for Marine Protected Areas, where there was a youth committee and they took part in the decisions and the policy making that was happening at the Congress. And I just want to mention this because what you're doing right now, it's also like making your voices be heard is what's making the world change already. So there is youth that are having a seat at the table because of what you're asking and how you're pushing. So I just wanted to share, like in my experience, and of course, because as I mentioned, that's the role that we have at OceanWise, at our education department, just empowering youth and getting to see firsthand that that is happening and that youth are being heard. It's part of the goal, right? So I just wanted to say that. There's also another thing that I wanted to mention. There is a group in BC specifically, they reached out to us last year, and I was impressed because this aligns with what you're doing. It's a group of youth that are called Climate Education Reform BC. I don't know if you're familiar with them. This is a group of young people like you that are writing to the government, but like it's a movement that's already there, right? So if we join forces together and take systemic, like we are part of the systemic change, our efforts are not going to be, well, they are going to take more forward, well, strength, sorry, language barrier there. And well, you're not alone there. That's the first thought that comes to mind, seeing how everyone is fighting for the same cause that we are, because all of the people that it's in this goal, we're all fighting for the same goal. It's very powerful and inspiring again. So those are my thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing. And I love when we get to do these presentations and our panelists provide these great little insights and opportunities of different groups that they know of. I told the students this year, bring a notebook in case anything pops up that you want to ask me about later, because we have so many students involved that want to be a part of the climate fight once they leave school. Even, I mean, they're already a part of the climate fight, but even further involved. So thank you for sharing that opportunity. I would like to call on next, we will hand it over to Kathy Rohrbeck with Green Learning to share her response.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I just, again, appreciate all of your efforts and work, you know, to gather all the input from the youth, to bring that all together, to brainstorm with, you know, youth across Canada, and then to compile that into this very informative climate manifesto. So congratulations on completing this and sharing it in such a concise way. And I know some of the things that stood out for me in the information that you shared is, again, that only 40% of students feel that they're getting adequate climate change education. So I really appreciate the demand for more education on climate change in all schools. And I guess it would also be great to share this with the provincial ministries of education, since they are really the leaders on that. So I would encourage you to share that with the provincial ministries of education. And also just the, you know, climate change touches on so many things that you talked about, the broad range of areas that are interested, from biological conservation to transition to renewables, to reducing waste and use of plastic, and even, you know, accessible food programs for schools. So, you know, it covers a wide range. And I wasn't surprised to see that 41% of youth feel eco-anxiety. That's being echoed in a lot of information. And I really think part of that is there's a lack of knowing about the pathways forward and being a part of that pathway forward, and feeling that you are part of making a difference. And again, just really inspired to see the strong commitment of youth to make a difference in their schools and communities, and in the overall direction that Canada is taking. And I did mention at the beginning, our organization is about empowering youth in the energy transition and climate change and the green economy. And a big part of that is we feel we really need to support educators to feel confident in teaching some of these topics and bringing it into their classrooms, as well as giving them the resources. Oh, sorry, it's allergy season for me. To empowering youth, and in doing this, by involving you in actions and being part of the solution, that's how we create eco-optimism and maybe reduce eco-anxiety. We have a number of programs, and one of them is our partnership with OceanWise and Taking It Global and Center for Global Education. We've created an eCards program, which is, again, another tool for students to do some research, create a message, an image, and send that to decision makers. So that's another way for bringing your youth voice forward. And we also have 5 different action challenges each year. And I know some of your schools have participated in those action challenges, and all of the things that you talked about doing at your school are a way to be a part of that. And I think, you know, whatever you can do in continuing to showcase the things that you are doing at your school, in your community, whether it's inviting media in to see some of the things you're doing. It just shows again that youth really think this is important and are taking action right now. We're also doing a project it's a pilot project with a school in Calgary that is really looking at, the transition to electric vehicles and how do we get automotive programs prepared for that. So it's a hands-on project. Students are converting a gas car to an electric car, and we're putting charging station at the school just to show, that again, schools are a big part of the community, and that hands-on experience in being part of that pathway for the transition and looking to those future careers that are there as a great need. We're working with one of the charging station groups, and they're saying we're getting all these charging stations installed. We need technicians to maintain them. So those green career pathways. And I think youth voice is critical to increasing the speed of change. You are the ones that are going to really make us adults continue to push and be motivated to make sure that this change is occurring at the speed that it needs to be. And your involvement in initiatives like this, there's lots of youth advisory councils that you could bring this forward or look at being part of. That can be, there's federal ones, there's provincial ones. I know the Ministry of Education in Alberta has a youth council. Municipalities often have youth councils. Even your school boards may have a youth council, and they may not be environment focused, but it's a way again to bring that environment, climate change to the forefront in those areas as well. And I think your voice is powerful in just showing this at various levels and various contexts. I encourage you to continue to lead the change in your school and community with all of those things that you're doing. And I know youth are often referred to as the leaders of tomorrow, but I just want to congratulate you all because you are the leaders of today by taking this on and doing it. So you see yourself as leaders because you are. And I get emotional, so I'm going to stop.
I love that so much. So many of our students say, like, when I leave school and I start this, they're doing it right now. That is such a wonderful message. Thank you very much for all of those words. There were a couple of things that Kathy mentioned that I just wanted to touch on a bit. One of them was talking about that aspect of climate anxiety. And we know that many youth experience climate anxiety. Many adults do as well. But we have to remember that the youth presenting today have only ever lived in a world that has been in the middle of a climate emergency. They don't know anything different. And the best way that is proven to help with climate anxiety is giving them that opportunity to feel like they're a part of that action and a part of the work that's making that better. So thank you very much to everyone for giving them that opportunity today, because you are helping reduce that 40% for sure. All right, and finally, I would like to pass it over to Lanielle Bateman to share the response from ECCC.
Okay. Thanks very much. And I guess the disadvantage of going last is, well, one, I get to agree with everything that the speakers ahead of me said, but so many of the things that I wanted to say have been covered as well. So again, just expressing my appreciation. I mentioned in my intro that this was one of the best meetings that I attended last year, having the chance to do it. And so I guess I'm considered a policymaker in the government of Canada. And so the opportunity to attend a meeting like this and kind of have you sitting on my shoulder as we do our work and push for increasing ambition and, stay strong when things are difficult and we're trying to get a policy through, you may think I'm here presenting to you, but you're presenting to me. And so it really goes both ways. So I really wanted to share that because I do think that you may, enjoy today and feel like it's a great presentation, but I hope that you realize that it may last the impression that you leave for all of us as we go back and do our work. And so I hope my messages back do the same for you. And so really just echoing a lot of what others have said, that I think
the opportunity to be connected and take action is really important. And I also noted the stats on eco-anxiety in the presentation, and it's certainly a job hazard in my work. And I know that being out in nature and taking action is part of what helps me. But I also really like the points that people were raising about taking action and being visible and seeing people do things inspires others. It sets an example, and it's a great way to make connection. And so I think, Sarah, I heard you mentioning about gardening and beekeeping, and Sarah, you were talking about cleanups and taking bikes. And so, just some of those things that, we do and feel empowered after doing them and share them and have connection experiences with others, I think are really important. In terms of just a couple of other points that were raised in the material, I think it was covered already that the formal education system is at the province and territorial level, but through the federal government, we do a lot of work on skills and training. And so whether that's climate change adaptation, whether it's climate change mitigation, we have programs like an action and awareness program that help fund efforts for awareness and education. And so some of those federal programs can be great opportunities. Sometimes we have programs that are specific in individual contexts. So an example that I know that is really powerful is presentations with youth and Indigenous elders, where we're helping to support those processes where Indigenous elders have so much knowledge and stewardship of the earth to pass forward. And so making sure that those connections stay strong. So those are some of the things that the federal government is investing in to just make sure that intergenerational transfer of good practices are keeping alive and vibrant and informing what we do. In terms of our work on the National Adaptation Strategy, we've really focused on skills and training and the opportunity to do more awareness, to do videos on adaptation that are targeted at a youth level. So I think not just in the individual programs, but in our policy making, we've tried to do a lot of that work as well. And then in our policy making as well, having opportunities for youth involvement. So also I read with interest in the manifesto, and Claire, you did a great job of presenting the recommendations, so appreciated that. But just that point about youth being involved in policy making. So would just echo the points that were raised about being involved in youth councils, because for us in our work to develop a plan and a strategy, we went to the Environment Canada Youth Council. The minister has set up a council of 10 youth members. And so we went to them to involve them in the policy process. We did an agriculture youth council as well. And then I would also encourage, echoing the point that the work that you're doing now is Leadership Now, but ongoing involvement in organizations that you might be interested in. So groups like Youth Climate Lab or Students on Ice or Youth for Nature, those were the kinds of organizations that we tapped into when we were trying to feel where can we hear youth voices. Then we would tend to go to those organizations because they're organized to help us reach out. We had an open engagement process, an open web platform, and got thousands and thousands of comments and submissions and such. But I just emphasize too that connection in organizations can be a structural way to help make sure your voice is heard, because we tend to go to those organizations because they have some capacity and some organization to bring the voices in or leverage the networks that they've established. And so I think all of that was just me picking up on a couple of the points that I saw in the manifesto and sharing a little bit about what Environment and Climate Change Canada is doing and where I hope that some thoughts or views on how we do policy work or how we connect into networks could be helpful. And then the last thing that I would say is that I hope in your career journeys with the work that you're doing now and your inspiration and your advocacy work that you consider a job maybe one point in your future later at Environment and Climate Change Canada. We have student programs and they're a great way to get in the door. And I introduce myself as an environmentalist. The minister describes himself as an activist. So maybe the federal government is not always viewed as the most exciting workplace, but there are a lot of us here who have a lot of passion. And so I just hope that you also consider the federal government or Environment and Climate Change Canada as one of the possibilities in your career, because there's a lot of great work taking place. And so getting up every day, working on these issues and fighting for them is a great way to be involved. So I hope that you may one day consider being in a student program or joining full-time in the federal government and bringing your passion there. So thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. It's awesome to hear someone who's on the inside and feels like you're in our youth's corner and sharing all of these things that you are doing that reflect, I guess, the demands and the perspectives in the paper. So I really appreciate that. I think it's inspiring for them to hear from you from the government side. Now, we do have about 10 minutes left before we do have to do our wrap up. So if any of our panelists or guests here have any comments or questions for the youth, you can either let me know in the chat or raise your hand and I will call on you. But while we just think about that, I actually do have a couple of questions because our 3 youth that are here today, of course, are a very small fraction of the large amount of youth that we have in the Decarbonize program. So they are just a small representation of who we have here. So just based on, I know Sarah had spoken in the presentation about how we had a lot of asynchronous brainstorm documents that we work on. Of course, we have schools across Canada, so it's not always easy for us to join together and virtually meet and work on things. So a lot of our stuff is kind of working documents that we share back and forth. The great thing about that is we can get tons and tons and tons of feedback, tons of great ideas, lots of stuff from all of our youth. And just reading through those documents, there were a couple of things that really stood out to me that I would love to get a little bit of feedback from if anybody here has some words of wisdom. So the first one, we do hear a lot of the times our youth that do these kinds of presentations or this kind of activism, especially if they're under 18, they feel a little bit like when they present, the people watching the presentation are just there to check a box and say, yep, I listened to a kid, go on your way. Now, a lot of the time it is great when we do these. People are usually very impressed because obviously look at how great this group did. But what would be your advice or your words of wisdom to try to help our youth going forward be taken more seriously, or maybe be looked at as more of a realistic presentation than just looking at, well, we've listened to a kid, now we can move on. Does anybody have a little bit of advice, especially for those of us that are hoping to carry on with this climate career in the future, of ways that we can be seen, maybe not just as a child that is presenting on climate, but as someone who lives in the climate and has ideas of their own?
I can start.
Wonderful.
Yes, so I feel what you are saying because I've been in this field for the last 40 years. And when I started, we were talking about planet warming, and we changed the subject of planet warming because of lobbying efforts to climate change, to make it a vague, what's climate change? Could be good, could be bad, but planet warming really shows you that, there is something that is getting heated up and it could be dangerous. But what I want to say is that I realized that at the point, the fact that I knew what was coming gave me an advantage. And very young, much younger than me at the time, what's coming. So you're that sort of the future teller. And adults wants to know what the future is bringing. So I advise that you keep that tag in your front as a future teller. You know what you're talking about because science is behind you, not ideology. It's science because you are reading it, you are measuring, you are educating yourself. And so you are not doing just a guess, it's an educated guess based on knowledge.
Thank you very much. That is wonderful. And I mean, a lot of us here have a science background, so I think we can all second that as well. And a lot of our students also often tell me that science is one of their favorite classes. So to have science support you and to have it not be possible for us to not believe in the science anymore, I think is for sure very powerful. Do any of our other panelists have any thoughts on this question? Lanielle, I can pass it to you next.
Yeah, I'd be happy to join in. I guess the first part is just, I appreciate the question, although I have to say I regret it a bit. I feel badly that people would feel that way. I hope the experience that I shared where I was saying, you know, coming to a table like this and hearing was, you know, sitting on my shoulder as I went back and was doing policy work. It's there. It's like, I heard this, I have to carry it forward as I do my work. So I hope that, it sounds like people have had some bad experiences, but I hope people are finding spots where it is more powerful and they do feel their voices are heard. I think maybe people felt in the past before that youth voices didn't have a place or there wasn't a spot for them. But I think the way we have tried to make deliberate mechanisms to bring youth voices in is a recognition that youth voices are so important. So like Environment and Climate Change Canada has a youth council. It's a deliberate way to say, no, as we do our policy work, we'll have discussions with youth because their voice matters. And there's other federal departments that have that as well. And I think the funding and support to youth organizations to do awareness activities and things like that, or to say, the work that these organizations are doing is good and powerful. That's why we have a fund that is doing awareness and supporting them. So I guess I just would offer that that I hope that those signals, that things like youth councils are supporting those mechanisms, show a shift where people are valuing and seeing youth voices as more important. And if someone is, you know, saying that's just your voice and it's not strong enough, don't listen to them because we know it's not true. So thanks. I hope that helps.
Yes, for sure, totally. Dale, I'll pass it to you next.
Great. Thanks, Rebecca. I mean, first of all, I'd like to just say that it is really amazing to see youth getting involved in this way, to be raising awareness, but also taking action. I mean, climate is the mother of all injustices, right? It's an injustice to those who don't have the means to be able to adapt, whether it's in Canada or internationally. It's an injustice to other species that obviously are not in any way responsible for the problem of climate change, and it's an injustice to our youth and the people who will follow, who are born into a world that is already degrading. And so it heartens me to see that there's youth that are engaged in this way. Definitely gives me hope. The thing that I would say, I mean, I agree with Senator Galvez in terms of bringing science. I'm a scientist and engineer too, so I value that. But also bring your passion. Like the thing that will sway hearts and minds is talking about your eco-anxiety if you have it. I know I have it pretty regularly. Express your anger. I mean, express your hope for sure, but express your anger if that's what you're feeling. People need to see the humanity behind what's going on and understand that this isn't just a policy challenge. It's an existential crisis for people. And further to that, so talking to your elected officials, I agree with everybody who said that. It's super important. It's also really important to just talk to the people that are around you. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your neighbors. We know from research that people take to heart the things that they hear from their peers, from the people around them, much more than a radio report or the news on TV. When you express the need, the want, the hope for climate action and having a better world, like that affects people around you, especially the people that love you and you love them. So bringing that to, yes, elected officials that can make a difference, but also, people close to you, because that's how you build community. That's how you get a critical mass of people that are all looking for much greater action that we haven't seen yet. So I'll leave it there. Thanks for inviting me. It's really wonderful to be a part of this.
No, it's amazing to have you here, and thank you very much for those words. That idea that climate is an injustice, I think, is something that is felt very strongly by everyone in this meeting, but I can say for sure by our youth that participate in the Decarbonize program as well. Mercedes, I'll pass it to you next.
Thank you. Well, for me, and it's a very interesting question. So I have a background leading projects like social projects or projects that have a social lens that are targeting social injustice. And one thing that I think that, like the two elements that I think that make you be heard is doing the research, which certainly you have done, like have the science to back you up, and then come up with strategies, because like that pathway of brainstorming and finding those solutions will get you the knowledge to answer all the questions. Like you will be prepared to inform people and also to show how informed you are about the problem, right? And that will give you different, well, you will get a different perception. Like it's not youth that are talking, it's not just like the passionate youth, it's informed youth that are prepared to take action and jump in at any moment, right? So for me, that's like the main difference, having those strategies and solutions, and also, well, that you've done with the paper that you're presenting today, right? And also give it a place. The internet is a very, very wide world. You never know who is researching about the same thing, what group can find out about the paper, or if it's in a magazine, it can help anyone to get your insight and to build other actions that are contributing for the same cause.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Kathy, just because I didn't get a hand from you, but are you interested in sharing any thoughts on this as well before we pass it back?
Sure, I'll just do a quick piece on this. I think, you know, like you say, when you're presenting, you're not sure, is people just, oh, I heard them and great, I'm moving on with my day. I like that in your presentation today, you put in some, what can you do? So I would maybe it's having a very specific audience to who you're presenting to. So say you're talking about the education component and it's with educators, then it could be, you know, what is going to change in curriculum? Like have a very specific ask of what you want to change, and then say, when can we meet with you again to see what progress has been made on our ask? So it could be that follow-up piece with it as well, or it could be you could do a little survey at the end on, you know, what piece are you going to take and how are you going to share that with others? So it could be something as simple as that, just to kind of make people a little bit accountable for being in the session or however you're doing that. And I really like, Dale, bringing your humanity and how you are feeling and telling your story. With the previous organization I worked with, and Sarah, it included students from your school at Lacombe Composite High School. We got to work with an artist, and the students created the future that they wanted to see in their school, and they did it through art. And so it was a lovely video, but it was their voice talking about, you know, what they saw as the change and how did that change come about. So anything where you can bring your voice of how you're really feeling and why you're doing what you're doing at your school because of what you're feeling, I think also brings a lot more, it brings the voice to it. And as you said, Dale, the humanity, they see that it is people behind these issues. It's not just an issue, it's the impact on people. So those would be my thoughts on that.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. And I do want to thank you all. Before I pass it back over to our youth, I would like to, just as their coordinator, say thank you for all of those messages. You all had such inspiring ideas. I always come out of these meetings feeling so excited and inspired for the students. So I know they feel that way as well. And as far as next steps for us, I know a lot of our youth were already, the day we finished writing the paper, coming up to me and saying, oh, let's do a provincial presentation. I want to present to this person, this person, this person. So I am hoping that we can get a few more of these presentations in while the iron is still hot, while we still have these fresh ideas down on paper, and can give these youth a few more stages to share those ideas with, because I know a lot of you are saying there's lots of different people that would like to hear this, and I'm sure the students, they would be interested in sharing that as well. So for our final thought, I would like to pass it back to Sarah. She had some final thoughts from the youth that she would like to share before we do our picture.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you so much on all of your insights. It was so great to hear from all of you, because I know that this inspired me from hearing from you guys, and I know I could speak from the other youth here and youth all over, that your words really do mean something. And when we know that our voices are actually being heard and it's not just being pushed away, it just inspires me to continue on what I'm doing. And I know that our group soon, we're planning on exploring the bees, as in how we can help with their issues, as like going to a bee specialized place just to learn about more things. And I know that this is, and just hearing what you guys have to say only makes me want to do it even more and continue. And I know that all of us appreciate so much about what you guys just said, so just thank you.
Well, thank you for those final thoughts. And yeah, that is one of the best parts of when we get together in person, is our school up in Cold Lake gets to see how our school in the Combe raises their bees and gives them all these great ideas. I know our school that Anne Claire is from got some trees that they were planting this year and some composting advice. So it is great to see them sharing those ideas and getting to share that amongst them. So I would like to do a final thank you to everyone for joining us today. We're going to do a quick picture. So if you need to spruce yourself up, make sure your camera is on. We'll make sure we get everyone in here. And then we will let you all go. So girls, if you're ready. Yeah, fix the ponytail. Awesome, wonderful. Oh, thanks for joining, Sarah. Great. Okay, I think I got a good one. No one's blinking. Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank you all once again for joining us this year. I hope to see some of you back next year for our 2024 version. And I have a gazillion notes that I can share with the rest of our schools who are not here today. So thanks again for all the inspiring words.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for joining. Wonderful to see you, Kathy. Wonderful. Hey,